Look at men in their 40s and 50s. Some remain highly attractive, confident, and deeply engaged with their partners. Others seem to quietly vanish, becoming literal ghosts in their own lives. When a relationship falters later in life, people usually point to obvious factors, like physical aging, a dip in income, or plain bad luck. But those surface issues rarely break a solid foundation. While those external factors matter, the core of this decline is often psychological. Many men move towards this disconnection by choice, adopting a specific mindset about what it means to grow older, and assuming their rigid approach is the responsible way to live. Because they misdiagnose what's actually going wrong, they end up losing their deepest, most genuine connections, completely blind to the real reason their partner is slipping away. As a man gains years and experience, a specific assumption takes root. He starts to believe that maturity means he needs to have every single aspect of his life perfectly under control, relying almost entirely on logic and practical stability. But clamping down on your environment has a serious side effect. The relentless pursuit of absolute logical order often stops a man's emotional evolution. As reliance on logic and control expands over the years, it acts like a vice, steadily crushing his emotional bandwidth into a corner. With bandwidth squeezed, his ability to generate a spark plummets, making him predictable and difficult to connect with beneath the surface. The exact traits a man systematically builds to secure his career, such as detachment, a strict predictability, and intense rational control, are the same traits that dismantle his romantic life. Curious, observant. This brings us to a major psychological shift. Many men start to confuse the concept of maturity with becoming emotionally distant. They equate being a grown adult with being impenetrable. To maintain that exterior, they deploy strict defensive mechanisms. They stop taking emotional risks, they stop saying what they feel, and they suppress deep emotions to avoid looking chaotic. They build what is essentially an emotional fortress. It looks impressive and unshakable from the outside, but it functions as a mask of control. It's a structure built entirely around self-protection. Now, look at this from a partner's perspective. It is extremely difficult to share a deep, intimate bond with someone existing inside a windowless, defensive framework. A partner doesn't fall in love with your polished life experience. They don't crave your logical arguments or your managed financial resume. They connect with the visceral feelings you generate when you are in the same room together. When a man designs a perfectly ordered, entirely risk-free life, he drops his emotional output to zero. This breaks the mechanism that makes a partner feel seen or desired, making true connection impossible to sustain. That stagnation leads to a critical tipping point in long-term relationships. It's the moment a man looks at the life he's built and decides he no longer needs to prove anything. As soon as that thought takes hold, behavioral changes follow. He stops carefully observing his partner. His listening becomes passive, and he ignores the tiny details that build intimacy. Look at this process flow. When active engagement breaks down, the relationship shifts into a stagnant, repetitive loop of routine. And as that routine solidifies, the secondary line here, desire, takes a sharp dive toward zero. This rarely happens overnight. Instead, the daily, predictable routine acts like a slow suffocation, quietly extinguishing the warmth and desire until there is nothing left. Relying strictly on the stability of the past, without injecting new emotion into the present, effectively guarantees the relationship will eventually go cold. To reverse this decline in the second half of life, the requirement for connection changes. It demands active vulnerability. Vulnerability is the decision to remove the mask of control, even when it feels safer to keep it on. It is the willingness to be seen as you are, rather than as the character you've built. We see an unbalanced growth pattern in many men. They achieve significant compounding growth in their careers and financial portfolios, while their emotional evolution remains stuck in their youth. A soaring bank account and a brilliant professional reputation can solve many problems, but they cannot fill the silence of an emotional deficit in a marriage. The most persistent rule of long-term intimacy is that it does not sustain itself. It has no momentum of its own. It requires continuous, active building to survive. A man's true relational value isn't defined by the assets he's accumulated. It is defined by his present ability to connect with the person sitting across from him. Generating genuine emotional connection isn't a magical gift, it is a masterable skill. It can be learned, practiced, and improved through deliberate effort. Committing to that emotional evolution is how a man sustains attraction. By treating emotional presence as a lifelong practice, he changes how others experience and respond to his presence as he ages.